I'm down here at Donington Park. Not that you'd believe it because of the weather. It is so hot. It's currently 27 degrees. I'm here with Ducati UK for a customer track day. They kindly invited a few press, journalists, YouTubers down to try out some of their bikes, some of their new models. The first bike that I'm trying today is this Panigale V2S. I've not ridden a Ducati at all up until this point, so I'm very, very excited about riding something in red. There's some awesome people here, including Ducati's top test rider, Michele Pirro. A little bit about the bike. They start at 17 grand, although this one is a press bike and I'm sure it's had a few toys thrown at it. It has 120 horsepower, which doesn't sound like much, but anyone that I know that's ridden one already says it feels like 150 or 160 horsepower, so I'm sure it's going to be enough for novice me. It is a little bit smaller in frame compared to the V4S because I've been sitting on two static bikes and I definitely feel more comfortable on the V4S. So if you are tall, I'm 193, although the V4S is more expensive. It's definitely worth taking them both out for a test ride because the bigger cockpit, more space, might just push you over the edge to go for the V4S. It weighs just under 180 kilos. They've managed to strip a lot of weight out of this new one compared to the old one. Before we head out on track, I want to say a massive thanks to RST, Arrow Helmets. I can only mount a camera on the tank of the bike. I can't have one on my helmet, so you might not get the full experience of what I'm about to do, but we'll talk about it a bit later and I'll give you a summary of what I think of the Ducati Panigale V2S. You now join me wobbling around on about lap 3 of my first ever session around Donington Park on a motorbike. Due to the speed and wind noise, I couldn't use the mic in my helmet. Also, the fact that I was concentrating so much and trying to pick up and learn everything I could on this Panigale V2S. As luck would have it, I was actually at Donington Park 24 hours earlier in a car in exactly the same conditions, so at least I knew the layout of the full GP circuit. We're coming towards the end of this lap, so we're going through Melbourne Hairpin, which is super slow first, or I was in second gear around there. Now this is the last turn, I think it's called Goddard's, which leads us onto the start-finish straight. So I'll talk you through a lap and I'll talk you through what I was feeling on the bike. As you can see, I'm pulling hard, third gear, fourth gear, we touch fifth gear, and on most laps we're approaching 130 miles an hour before we tip in downshift down to third gear. Because this is one of my first laps, I was going through here sort of minimum apex speed of about 52 miles an hour, but I picked that pace up a little bit more as I did more laps. Coming down here through the Craner curves was just beautiful. The camera, of course, doesn't give you any kind of elevation, but we really are going downhill here into this old hairpin right-hander, and then we're going uphill for quite a while actually, and it's just beautiful. Later on in the day, when I jumped on the Street Fighter V4S that will be coming to the channel, I started to really flow through there and get a lot more speed, as you can imagine. We're now coming up through McLean's. Tricky right-hander to get right. It sets you up for this steep uphill and into the brakes, down into second as we tip into Coppice. It's a long sort of double apex corner. I was a bit greedy there to begin with. I should have been a bit wider. And then we come onto the back straight, which is absolutely glorious on this bike. Again, well over 130 miles an hour on most laps. before we slow back down again into the foggy S's. Now, the bike felt wonderful. It was very, very agile, amazing handling dynamics. It was very, very good on the brakes. And in fact, I think as a complete amateur, that's where I am good automatically on a motorbike. I remember my first track day, which was the one before this, a few weeks earlier in Spain, and I realised very quickly that I was decent on the brakes compared to a lot of other people, but it's just through the turns and everywhere else where I'm clearly a massive amateur. I think my multiple car track days, must have done 100 of those, and my 10 years of racing downhill mountain bikes just gives me a very good idea of where I can brake to the sort of latest point. Anyway, let's jump to me finishing this session for a quick summary, and then we'll head back out again with a bit more understanding of the track and of the Panigale V2S.
Well, didn't talk much. That was my first session after a couple of sighting laps earlier on, and I was in full focus mode. Wow, what a machine! What a machine! My goodness, these aren't full slicks. They're road legal sticky tyres, I guess you'd call them, and they just give me so much grip. I've not experienced that before. I think there's a lot more to come, but as an initial taster, wow, that's awesome. I think the next session I'm going to follow an instructor and hopefully get some pointers on where to go quicker and yeah, how to improve my riding style. But that was pretty special. Yeah, that was cool. Very, very cool.
You now join me a couple of laps into my second session. I had 3 sessions in total on the Panigale V2S, and each session was about 15 or 17 minutes long. So not a massive amount of time to learn the circuit, to learn the bike, but enough time to get a good taster. What I forgot to mention earlier on is I am in the novice group. There are 3 groups: novice, intermediate and expert. And although I am a novice, I soon discovered that novices really are novice. They're really not very fast, and they're extremely slow in braking zones, etc. The guy that just passed me, that is Mark, my instructor for the day from Ducati UK. Absolute legend of a bloke. Was really, really helpful throughout the entire day, including when I jumped on the Street Fighter V4S later on. I've just gone past him. He's actually pointing at his foot, but I thought he said he had a problem with the bike. The reason he was pointing at his foot was because essentially one of my biggest faults was where my feet were sitting on the pegs. I was kind of using the center of my feet, or almost the heels of my feet, as opposed to the, well, towards the front end of the foot where it should be. And that was something that he was pointing out and trying to correct me on for most of the day. Without coming up with an excuse book, I think one of the reasons I couldn't get my feet completely right on the V2S was just the lack of space that I had on this smaller sports bike. Mark's actually a similar build to me, similar height, etc. He's on a V4S Panigale, which is a lot more spacious, I discovered later on, and definitely suits the taller rider. There goes Mark again. This time, as we head out of McLean's, he taps his seat and basically says, right, you know, follow me, hold on to me. And that's what I tried to do for a while, whilst trying to understand everything else that was going on around me. Let's just talk about some of the bike's characteristics. Well, on the brakes, it felt fantastic. Through the corners, it was incredible. Now, I was learning a lot, as I've already talked about. This was probably only my 5th or 6th lap around Donington Park, but I was already starting to trust the bike and the tyres. There was plenty of heat. It was about 25 degrees, outside, and I'm sure the tyres were a lot warmer than that, including the tarmac we're on, so we had plenty of grip. What I had to deal with in this novice group was, obviously, although I was on a fast-ish bike, there was a lot faster bikes there. So sometimes, like that guy that just overtook me, or this guy I'm following here, they're on quicker bikes. So on the straights, they're much quicker, and I'm making up a lot of time on the brakes, which is definitely my favourite area on a motorbike and on track. In the short time I've spent on track now, after this 2 track days, I definitely love braking zones, and I feel like I am much more experienced and much more confident on the brakes than I am through the turns and everywhere else. Now we're coming out onto the start-finish straight. You'll see second, red line third, into fourth, and then we go into fifth, touching about 130 miles an hour before we brake down into third and tip it in again. My pace has already picked up a little bit compared to the first session, as you'd expect, but that thankfully continues into the next session. Coming down here through the Craner curves, we're sitting at just over 100 miles an hour. As we tip onto the left, we're bringing that back to about 90, and it just feels wonderful. Honestly, the more you trust the bike, the better everything starts to feel. The more, or the less speed you scrub coming into the braking zones, and the more it flows. It's a really flowy circuit when you get everything right. And I did start to get everything, well, right in my head at least, in the afternoon when I jumped onto the much faster Street Fighter V4S. And that video will be coming very, very soon. As you see here, it starts to turn into quite a big traffic jam. So you're kind of navigating your way through riders. None of us have got mirrors on, or those that have, the mirrors themselves are taped up. That's what we were taught in the briefing. Don't use your mirrors if you've got them, just stay online. So it's a bit of a free fall. Again, as you can see, that guy there in the black jacket clearly had a lot more pace in a straight line, but is a lot more steady on the brakes and through the corners. And as I come out of here, let's just see, as I wind the throttle on, yeah, you start to see the power difference. But thankfully, I'm just about to go for the brakes here as someone else flies down the outside. So you've really got to have your wits about you and try not to let anything surprise you, because bikes do arrive left, right and centre. Someone is getting recovered there, and they end up red flagging this session as a result, because obviously it was much easier to recover marshals, bikes, riders, etc. when there's red flags out and everyone's going a lot slower. So that is my second session. I'll give you another summary on the bike, and then we can head out for my final session.
And there's a really fast road bike, or a sort of amateur intermediate track bike. This is just awesome, and I can see why a lot of the press and people that can actually ride really rate this new V2S, because it's just so nimble, feels fantastic, feels like it's got plenty of power, plenty of torque, until obviously a more powerful, torquey Ducati passes you. But yeah, wow, that was cool. I'm learning a lot today, a lot. I'm slowly building trust in the tyres as well, but I think there's a lot more to go. Well, I know there's a lot more to go. Look at all these Ducatis. So this is actually a customer Ducati day. So if you've got a Ducati and you want to do an awesome track day, you need to look these days up, because it's just insane. And actually, the good thing about today, or one of the good things about today, is that customers can actually come and ride these bikes. I'm not sure if it's these press bikes or the demonstrators, but these bikes that are in front of us, they can jump on, do some laps. So experience the newer machinery if you've got an older bike, or if you are one of the doubters about the V2S and you don't think it's quick enough. Wow, it definitely feels it to me. 26 degrees outside. Wow, wow, wow. Right then, heading out for my final session. My bike's over here, just getting fueled up.
You join me in my third and final session around Donington Park on the wonderful Panigale V2S. I'm really starting to gel with the bike, trust my own ability, trust the bike and the tyres ability, and just have fun. Because remember, track days, whether you're on a bike or in a car, are all about having fun. Sure, there's a massive serious element about it, and today was a huge learning curve for me, but the second I started enjoying myself, I felt a lot freer on the bike, and everything just came together a lot nicer. Obviously, much thanks to Mark, again, my instructor. As we come through here, the old hairpin, and open it up, this next section I did so much quicker in this lap than I did in my first and second session. In fact, approaching the Schwantz curve, I see 116 miles an hour. The first two sessions I hadn't seen much more than about 102, 103 miles an hour through there. Just my minimum apex speed through McLean's there is quicker than first and second session, as you'd expect. And even approaching slower riders like this, having the confidence to just sweep around the outside and in fact set up coppice really nicely, it just all felt good. And as I said, I was starting to really gel with the bike.
Actually a little bit out of breath from that last session. I was really concentrating, but for anyone that's tried to do something intense before, usually a sport of any description, if you concentrate really hard, you stop breathing. I know that sounds silly, but that's exactly what I was doing.
Good to see you, mate.
Good to see you. Good to see you again, matey.
This is Chopsy. He probably needs absolutely no introduction if you're into your bikes. If you don't know who he is, who are you?
One of those YouTube fellas, you know, they get everywhere. Not only driving cars, but also riding bikes as well.
They're annoying, aren't they?
They're annoying, aren't they? You come to this state, they're full of them, isn't it? It's full of them. People with cameras walking around, holding them like this. Been going about 15 years, mate, now, so quite a long time, but still absolutely loving it.
Yeah, and I have to say, I've only done one press launch up till now, and that was the F900 R and XR in Spain. And that was the first time I met you, and I was really timid and a bit worried about going out there, not knowing anyone. But so many people, including your good self, made me feel so welcome out there, and it just proves that bikers in general are really nice people, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they are. It's that little community, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a community. Some like I guess that's to some degree that's with cars as well. But it's, you ride along, you wave. It's a community. You're brought into it, you know.
Yep.
And you were so quick on that. I'm almost sort of pleased I'm not in the same session as you, because honestly, on that when we were at the wet track at Almeria, and I was behind you, and I was thinking, he's bloody going well here. All you've got to do is work on your body position a bit, and you'll be gone, mate. You'll be gone. So,
well, you know what it is. A touch wood. It's because I've not been doing it long, so I don't have that fear. I do have some fear, enough fear. But let's just talk quickly about the bike. So the bikes I'm riding today are the Panigale V2S, and then after lunch, so in about half an hour's time, I'm going out on the Street Fighter V4.
Yeah, you're going to love that.
Okay.
I mean, I've been the same as you. I've been riding the Panigale V2S this morning.
Yep.
Oh my God, I've absolutely loved it. I borrowed one for a couple of weeks on the road. Thought, wow, you don't need any more than this. But I thought on track, you're going to think you're going to be lacking a little bit. And it is a bit down the straights, and you get a few people come past, but it's so agile, so controlled around the corners, braking support. I've been absolutely, I don't think I've ever been around here as fast as what I have on that.
On the V2?
On the V2 this morning.
Sure, V4S is going to be much quicker down the straight, as I've seen today, but actually a V2S is fast enough.
fast.
It's it's still 130, 140 miles an
Yeah.
hour, which is mind blowing
Yeah.
for me. But yeah, no, it's great. I'm looking forward to any tips for me on
Well,
the
the Street Fighter V4S is incredible.
Okay.
I was lucky enough to do the launch at Ana Lucia, and
Yeah.
it was sunny, unbelievably. It wasn't as hot as this though, and it was amazing. But I was learning the circuit, and it's a really tricky technical circuit. So,
Yeah.
but I borrowed it for another week on the road, and blew my mind. It's a little bit. A lot of these systems are maybe not as much fun as the V2 Street Fighter are actually on the road.
Okay.
Because you can't even get anywhere near the
Yeah.
performance of the bike. Round here, you'll be able to get somewhere, you'll tickle it, but you won't even get nowhere near the performance of the bike, even around here.
Wow.
It's incredible. And I haven't ridden the Panigale on track, that's what I'm riding this afternoon.
Yeah.
But I know the Street Fight, you're going to be like, wow. And it feels a bit more substantial. Being bigger guys,
Yes.
it's a little bit cramped on the bit. It's not too bad, but it is a little bit cramped. But you're going to be more at home with the upright bars and the
Yes, yeah.
muscling it in on the bars. You're
Okay.
going to absolutely love it, mate.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Mate, thank you very much for your time. That was another awkward handshake. Not even COVID time. Should we do one of those?
One of those, mate.
No, it's really, honestly, thanks for
No
being so
worries,
nice
mate.
and
No,
friendly.
and-
Your content's fantastic.
Oh,
and it's just,
appreciate
I think it's very relatable. You are exactly the same person in real life as you are on the channel. No, but you know what I mean? A lot of people put on this sort of whole facade, but you're not. You're the same person. It's really...
That's appreciated, mate. Thanks
Yeah.
very much indeed.
Cool.
Lovely.
Cheers. Wow, what a day, what an experience. I am back in my car, heading home, in air conditioning, finally starting to cool down a little bit. I can't tell you how much fun I've had today. In the afternoon, I rode the Street Fighter V4S, and I'm filming a separate video on that, so keep an eye out for that coming on the channel very, very soon. That was another level again, as you can imagine. 214 horsepower, just mad, but so much fun. Let's talk a little bit about the Panigale V2S. There's been a lot of talk around that bike and the fact that it only has 120 horsepower. In isolation, to me, it feels like it has at least 150, 160 horsepower. To think that my F900 GS has 105 horsepower, well, it definitely feels more than 10% more powerful than my F900 GS. It feels really, really quick. The only time it didn't feel really quick was when I was getting overtaken by V4Ss, whether they were Panigales or Street Fighters. So if you're looking at one of them and you're concerned about maybe the power of figures and stuff on paper, try and ignore those before you take it out for a test ride, because it doesn't feel anywhere near 120. It has lovely mid-range pickup, as I think we talked about with Chops. Lovely mid-range, it revs out really nicely, feels really good. My biggest issue with that bike, and I think I talked about it a couple of times, is just the size of it. I am maybe 2 inches too tall for it. I've got a really long torso and I just felt quite cramped in the cockpit area compared to the V4S, whether that was the Panigale or the Street Fighter. Value for money, I'm not sure what kit those bikes had on them, but let's just assume it was near base level, which off the top of my head was 17 grand. Well, seems to sit about right when you look at other bikes out there from BMW and other manufacturers. And there's no getting away from the fact that when you have a red bike between your legs, it does just feel special. It was a really premium day today. There was a lot of very, very exotic Ducati machinery out there from all eras. It wasn't just the modern stuff. There was also some hypermotards out there, multi-stradas, you name it. There was pretty much everything out there on track. And actually in the afternoon session, they upgraded me to intermediate for the V4S Street Fighter, which made a huge difference. Because although I am a novice, there are some or there were some proper novices out there going very slow, and I was catching up to the majority of people by lunchtime, and by the time I'd finished with the Panigale V2S. I have to say huge thanks to Sarah and her team at Ducati UK, Miko, and everyone else that was friendly and helpful today. I had so much fun. Chopsy was amazing. Again, this afternoon on the V4Ss, we had so much fun riding together. And of course, the last thanks has to go to my wonderful instructor and mentor, a guy called Mark, who works at Ducati UK. He was amazing all day, so much patience, gave me so many pointers, but didn't overload me with stuff. If I sit next to someone in a car, a pro driver, an instructor, they can load me up with stuff because I can do the basics relatively well on track. Whereas on the bike, I'm learning so much. And so if Mark had overloaded me with information too early, I would have just not got any of it right. But as it turned out, I was working on bits and pieces, body positioning mostly, where my feet go on the pegs. Yeah, that took some serious coaching. I had to keep reminding me because I was using more the heels of my feet, and as I was tipping the bike or leaning the bike into the corners, my boots were actually dragging on the tarmac, and that's because they weren't sitting back enough. It should be on the balls of my feet. So that was a massive, massive tip and pointer. So Mark, if you're watching this, really, really lovely to meet you, and thanks for your patience. You really taught me so much today. I feel like I've achieved a lot on the bike. I hope I haven't missed out anyone else. Once again, I have to say a big shout out to RST, Arrow Helmets, because yeah, you've sent me so much lovely gear, and unlike cars, you just can't ride a motorbike, especially on track, unless you have the right equipment. And knowing that I had an airbag in my suit is just a little bit of a safety blanket. I definitely wasn't planning on using it, but just knowing it's there is wonderful. Right guys, thanks for watching if you've hung around this long, and stay tuned for more content coming soon, especially the Street Fighter V4S, because I really picked up the pace with that bike and had a lot of fun. Cheers, and I'll see you soon.